At its height, the Kuru dynasty commanded wealth and influence that spanned the known world. But even the most prosperous empires remain vulnerable to the private desires of the people who rule them. King Shantanu's romantic obsession with Satyavati required a massive sacrifice to be realized. To facilitate the union, Shantanu's eldest son, Bhishma, took an absolute vow of eternal celibacy, removing himself and his future lineage from the throne to satisfy the demands of the king's new bride. This foundational vow triggered a permanent dynastic crisis. When the direct heirs died young, the lineage fell to three flawed candidates: the blind Dhritarashtra, the cursed Pandu, and the wise Vidura, whose birth to a maidservant disqualified him from the crown. This instability fractured the royal house into two distinct rival factions for the next generation: the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra, known as the Kauravas, and the 5 sons of Pandu, the Pandavas. Their youthful rivalry escalated during their martial training under the master Dronacharya. But the balance of the court shifted with the arrival of a formidable outsider who did not belong to either royal branch. Karna was a warrior of immense skill, yet his unknown lineage saw him rejected by the Pandavas. He aligned himself with the Kauravas, providing them with a martial champion capable of disrupting the traditional power structure of the family. A generational inheritance of compromised duties and unchecked entitlements created a structural weakness within the Kuru Empire that no external enemy could have matched. Childhood jealousy matured into lethal politics. The Kauravas attempted to assassinate their cousins by luring them into a palace made of flammable lacquer and setting it ablaze while they slept. The Pandavas survived the fire and lived in hiding until the warrior Arjuna won the hand of Princess Draupadi. Armed with new political alliances, the brothers returned to the capital and established the magnificent city of Indraprastha. The brothers solidified their status through the Rajasuya Yajna, a ritual of imperial dominance that forced the surrounding kings to acknowledge their absolute authority. The Kauravas countered this political rise with a rigged game of dice. They invited the eldest Pandava, Yudhishthira, to a match where the odds were secretly manipulated by their uncle, Shakuni. Bound by a code of honor that forbade him from refusing a challenge, Yudhishthira gambled away his kingdom, his wealth, and his family. The game culminated in the public humiliation of Draupadi in the royal assembly and the forced exile of the 5 brothers. The elders of the Kuru court sat in total silence while a queen was assaulted in their own halls. This failure of the kingdom's moral and legal frameworks ensured that only a violent physical clash could now resolve the fracture. After 13 years of exile, the Pandavas requested the return of their lands. When Krishna's final diplomatic mission failed to move the Kauravas, the path to war became inevitable. Millions of soldiers and kings gathered on the holy field of Kurukshetra, creating a military mobilization on a scale previously unknown to the ancient world. As the army stood poised for the first clash, time and action froze. Arjuna, overwhelmed by the prospect of killing his own kin and teachers, collapsed in his chariot in a state of moral paralysis. Krishna answered Arjuna's grief by imparting the Bhagavad Gita. He defined Dharma not as personal attachment, but as a cosmic law of righteous duty that must be upheld regardless of the cost to one's own family or self. Krishna's teaching identifies the war as a necessary spiritual crucible, required to purge the world of corrupt leadership and restore a sense of cosmic order. Over 18 days of relentless combat, the war systematically eliminated the era's greatest warriors and most experienced leaders. On the 10th day, the patriarch Bhishma was brought down. He fell upon a bed of arrows, pinned between the 2 armies, and removed from the command of the Kaurava horses. Victory required deceit. On the 15th day, the Pandavas manipulated their former teacher Drona into laying down his weapons, allowing them to kill the invincible master. The 17th day saw the defeat of Karna. While he struggled to free his chariot wheel from the earth, Arjuna struck him down, ending the life of the Kaurava's most formidable champion. The final duel ended the life of the last Kaurava brother, Duryodhana, concluding 18 days of systematic slaughter. The Pandavas' ultimate military victory left them to rule over a decimated family tree and a kingdom that had become a graveyard. Yudhishthira's coronation was followed by the Ashwamedha Yajna, a horse sacrifice intended to spiritually cleanse the blood-soaked land and assert his new authority. Despite their power, the Pandavas' reign was defined by an emotional hollowness. The immense loss of life during the war cast a permanent shadow over their years on the throne. Decades later, the end of the era arrived with the quiet departure of Krishna from the mortal world, signifying the closing of a divine chapter in human history. Krishna's own Yadava dynasty succumbed to a self-inflicted destruction, proving that internal rot can destroy even the most divinely protected lineages. This decay demonstrates that earthly empires, even those established through righteous war, remain subject to the physical laws of time. Recognizing their time was over, the Pandavas renounced their kingdom and titles, leaving the capital behind for a final journey. They began the Mahabharat, a trek into the high Himalayas. One by one, Draupadi and the brothers fell to the elements, their mortal flaws preventing them from completing the ascent. Yudhishthira alone reached the summit, achieving a solitary ascent to heaven and providing the final resolution to the long history of the Kuru dynasty.